Welcome to Behaviorally Speaking, Leadership for Changemakers. I'm your host, Dr. Esther Bubb, and today I'm joined by Dr. Renisha James-Thomas, Evaluation Coordinator for Wichita Falls Independent School District. We talk about the power of presence, how behavior science supports equitable decision-making, and the cultural wisdom that guides her work. Let's dive in. So, Renisha, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. A very blessed Sunday to you. How is everything going?
Thank you. Everything is going well. I am honored to be a part of this podcast. I'm excited.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So, before we dive into the data, and all the fun stuff, about what you do and your research and things like that, we have to talk about home, Renisha, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. I'll give you a joke. I was working with a client, this was maybe two weeks ago, and she asked me where I was from. And I said, Grenada. And, she hadn't heard of it before. And then she said, do you like being from there? And I was just like so shocked by the question because I've never been asked that before. And I'm like,
what does that even mean?
Yeah. Yep. I'm like, of course. And she was like, well, some people don't like where they're from. I was like, well, I don't know anyone from the Caribbean. Yep, can't relate. Who doesn't like being from the Caribbean. So I'm like, yep, no, totally. Totally so happy and proud to be from Grenada. But let's talk a little bit about how Grenada, shaped your perspective on education, community, and, leadership growing up there.
Yes. I want to say absolutely. I have not met a Grenadian who did not like being a Grenadian or who does not want to start off by saying, hey, my navel string is buried under this particular cocoa tree or this particular coconut tree. I think we are fiercely patriotic and we really do love our home. And I can absolutely say I am one of those people or Grenadians who really, really, even though I do not live there currently, I still absolutely love being from Grenada and also the Caribbean region.
Yeah.
In terms of Grenada and Grenadians, I think we are very warm people. We are kind. I think we're just intrinsically optimistic people. I think we are glass half full people. And I think sometimes even living there, I don't even think we are aware that we are optimistic people. I remember when I just moved to Texas and I started in the workspaces, my coworkers would say, you're always so happy. What's the deal? Why are you always coming in so happy? And to me, that was so normal. You just greet them. Good morning. How are y'all? And you get ready for the day. And I think this is something so normal or so expected, in the communities that we grew up in. In terms of community in Grenada, I want to say that you would see community embedded in many different facets of Grenada, from your little village to your own family, and even your school. There is community-centered thinking in every facet of our life. So it was easy for me. Let me not say easy. I think it was something that I expected to do in terms of leadership here, where my thinking is very community-based. There is a shared partnership or a shared weight in actually doing things and starting things and finishing things together. So I think I took a lot of that definitely from my little island and the people that I grew up with.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same, Renisha. Like the whole community thing, but the whole compassionate part of it too, right? I think we both, being Grenadians, being female too, right? So nurturers, all that good stuff. But I think the underlying thing is, being from Grenada, just compassion. I remember my years of teaching at St. Michael's RIC in Violence, right? So I got really sick like a couple of times. I don't know. It was some kind of allergic reaction, but it was weird because I didn't know I was allergic to anything. But imagining the principal leaving, and taking me home, giving me a ride home. I remember another time at St. Joseph's Convent, I also got sick, and my schoolmate, she lived in Ford, and I lived on Salisbury Road, so not far. and she left and, you know, walked me home and then went back. So it's just that whole caring, nurturing, even teaching in violence, you know, it's just one of those areas where, you know, the socioeconomic status is a little bit lower. So like just being there as a teacher, but knowing, yes, I'm a teacher, but I'm also there as a mother, as a mentor, as a community member, as a helper, as, you know, to offer things, you know. So I think for me and you, we could say that, yeah, we kind of were leaders, but not necessarily thinking of it that way. I would say for myself at least.
Yes.
I'm just like, just being the community person, being a Grenadian, this is just what we do. And I really think it helps shape the kind of leadership we're delving into today.
And I want to circle back on, I think, education. I think one of the things that we really lean into in Grenada, we really do lean into education. Education is a very big piece for us, and without just that being pounded into our head from a very small child, I don't think many of us would have gone that far. So one of the things that I really do appreciate from my teachers, my mentors, my parents, even friends, that community support about, you know, go as far as you can, keep focus and pursuing education. That's a big part of the community building. Even from like our principals, all the leaders would focus and lean in on that.
Yeah, 100%. It's like that village, right? Village mentality. It takes a village. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you mentioned, you know, the warmth, you know, and, you know, we both know Grenada really uses the pure Grenada, but I still hold on to the Isle of Spice. Like, that's my thing, right?
Absolutely. I don't even think you could say one without the other. I think we should say it together. Yeah.
Together, exactly. So it's just that warmth, the sunshine, the resilience, right? If we think of, you know, all the things we had to go through, Renisha, like growing up, but like for our families and even still now, that really impacts us as individuals, but then also as leaders in our professional life. So how do you see some of that showing up for you in your professional leadership interactions in Texas?
Yes. I would say I'm thinking about some of my friends and even myself coming again from, you know, lower socioeconomic backgrounds and seeing our parents on a daily basis get up every single day getting up and going to work, even though they don't want to. And sometimes as a child, you don't know that they don't want to, but just that resilience, knowing that this is something that they have to do because they have a family or they have kids, that is something that I took with me in coming to the United States and working in Texas. And just knowing that the moment that you're in is not the moment that you're going to be in forever.
I like that.
I think about there's Sister Margaret. Sister Margaret is a market vendor. She sells spices. She sells all the good things. She sells cinnamon, clove, honey, all the things. I always visit her when I go back home.
Okay.
And Sister Margaret and Sister Smith, they raised their kids off of that particular job. And I remember them always saying they are so proud doing this job and raising doctors and raising nurses and all of that. And it reminds me that even though coming from a very small country, coming from a very humble beginnings, once you show up every day, that resilience pays off. Right?
Yes.
So I think the Grenadian spirit, as we usually say these days, we look about Talawa, we are small, but we have big impact.
Yes.
And I take that with me every single day, and I remind myself, because sometimes as individuals, you might have a little bit of imposter syndrome, sometimes talking yourself or trying to reduce yourself to make yourself small. But I remember, even though I'm from this small place, I can make a very big impact. And that is what I take from home. Yes, we are small. Yes, we might be one of the smaller Caribbean islands. Yes, we might not be well known, but we make big impact in very big places across the globe. So
yeah, I love that. And for me, it just reminds me a lot, Renisha, of grace, right? Just growing up home, but growing up in church, you know, just like giving grace to others, but at the end of the day, giving ourselves grace. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when we think of grace, when we think of resilience, we can kind of think of them together, because we may not have had the best day, or we may have made a mistake, but we have to be able to learn from it and say, okay, this happened, how do I move forward? What can I learn from it? So I think that's really just very helpful as well. And then others can see that impact. So not so long ago, I was, chatting with the prime minister, and he talked about resilience, because he's really big on resilience, but he talked about it from
Yes.
the
Mm-hmm.
perspective too of just taking care of ourselves. And, like being healthy and eating healthy and healthy lifestyles, drinking water, walking, running, whatever. Because if we're in a healthy state, mentally, physically, emotionally, we're more likely to be capable of, bouncing back. What are some of your thoughts on that perspective
Yeah,
of
I think it
resilience?
actually it trickles down. It's like a trickle down effect. Once you are well within, everything trickles out. You actually affect the environment in a more positive way. I think if you're sick within as well, the opposite is
Yeah,
true, right? So I do know the Prime Minister, he loves to talk about resilience, and that is definitely a word that has been impactful in the last couple of years as Grenadians, just thinking about, hey,
yeah,
how are we resilient? We are able to bounce back.
yeah,
We should be able to bounce back, and we
yeah.
can bounce back each and every time, even though there may be one or two step backs, like for example, the hurricane,
Yes,
stuff like that. So yeah, I do see that being, very impactful in our lives.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So as an evaluation coordinator, right, in Texas, you
Hmm.
deal with a lot of data.
Oh
uh,
yes.
Yeah,
Jeez.
how do you kind of, I could only imagine, right? Because that's just the crux of your job. I mean, I'm involved in it not as directly as you. So like I might review the reports, things like that, but it's still a lot of work. It's a lot of data. How do you kind of thinking of, behavioral science in the background, right? How do you look beyond numbers, Renisha, when you're doing evaluations, when you're looking at reports, or perhaps when you're coaching others, whatever it
Hmm.
might be, to really see people as humans, to really see beyond the data, right? Like the data could be our compass, but us as humans, and the humans that are giving us the data, and the humans that are represented by the data really should guide, our decisions from that data. So how do you look beyond the numbers to see the humans behind them?
Well, the people that I work with and I supervise, they know one of my favorite quotes.
Okay.
One of my favorite quotes is, numbers don't lie, but mathematicians do. I love that saying so much. I
I
mean,
love that quote.
I love it because you can anyone can assign a narrative or
Yeah.
context to the numbers, right? Data is always good, but you
Yeah.
need to have the context behind the data.
Hmm.
And when I review data, that is what I first lead with curiosity. More questions than
I love
answers.
that. Yeah.
I think some people think the data just automatically gives answers. It does not. You need to
Right.
be curious, right? When you
Hmm.
get the data, you don't lead with judgment. You lead with more questions. What is the context here? And for students who we assess for special needs, especially when there is behavior involved, we want to know what is being assessed. Is there a skill deficit? Is the environment impacting the student? All
Hmm.
of that, all of the things, all of these factors are things that I look at when I am thinking about the data. So I know there is a story behind the data,
Yeah.
not just looking on its face at the numbers. I always pause when I get the data.
Mm, I love that. So for me as a behavior analyst, like I don't do direct assessments as much anymore, but like
Hmm.
if, for example, someone comes to me with, okay, here's all this data we're seeing, like for example, the ABC data, and this is what's happening. So this child needs a
Hmm.
one-to-one, or, whatever, we need this. Or they
Don't
might
they
come,
always need a one-to-one?
and they're, right?
I mean, that's always
Exactly.
the first
Yep.
request. Oh, they
Yep.
need a one-to-one.
Yep. It always
Nothing
is.
else does that?
Not
Okay.
just that, just yep, just that. That just solves all the problems. So after, or they might say, what are your thoughts? What can we do? And I would always say, Renisha, like I have to go out and see myself.
Hmm.
Especially depending on the level, the severity, the intensity. I don't
Yeah,
want to
direct
separate.
observation.
Yeah, I don't want to separate myself from the person that they're referring to and just look at the data and say, okay, do this. So and then sometimes I go out, and as to your point, Renisha, oftentimes it's the environment, right? So sometimes we might do a functional behavior assessment, but we're not necessarily recommending a behavior plan because the issues we're seeing is not with the child, it's with the environment. So that needs to change. And if that changes, then we see a totally different child. So it's more than just the numbers. Like, and to your point, it's the story. There's often a story behind it. And then in addition to that, are we talking to the parents? Are we talking to the families, the preschool teachers, things like that, before we just look at the data? And, the other thing is like labeling a child, right? Who doesn't need to be labeled. So.
Oh, I take that very seriously.
Yeah.
Because that label is something that they carry on. Yeah. They carry with them for the rest of their lives. Oftentimes, once we put an eligibility or disability, we assign a disability to a child, that doesn't just fall off. So that's why I think every time we deal with we look at data, or we treat data, we need to at least look at the full context. And sometimes I would say some teachers, not all, I think oftentimes, just like we have the term nose blindness, they are sometimes blind to the environment. So sometimes as your behavior specialist going into the environment, it might be glaring to you. Oh, this is what you probably need to move or treat. But to the teacher, sometimes it blends in because it's so familiar to them. They're not seeing it as one of the reasons why there might be behavior involved.
Yeah, 100%. So how do you, I'm also really big on empathy, right? Renisha, I'm sure you are too. How do you lead with empathy in your role, in your position, and in your experiences, to make data feel, like as a tool for growth, right? Rather than a report card or, this is how poorly this person is doing, whatnot. This is where the person is at now, and how can we use that data to help them get from where they are to where they could be?
Right. Yes, empathy is something very dear to me as well, because I oftentimes want to understand where people are coming from. I think that's a big part of empathy. I don't think there's anything that happens without necessarily like a cause or a reason. Behavior don't just come up from nowhere. And in terms of how can I think your question was how can I, or how have I used empathy in my leadership?
Yes.
So in my capacity as the special ed coordinator, I think one of the things that I have noticed, at least within my district, is that there is a lot of things within the status quo that remains the same, right? And so, for example, there are schools within Wichita Falls that are across the tracks.
Yeah.
If you catch what I'm saying. And there are schools that are on the other side of the tracks.
Yes.
And sometimes we will get more referrals that look a particular way, where there are probably teachers, they are less tolerant to certain behavior and certain students. And then on the other side, the similar behavior might be treated differently. And for me, of course, I'm a Black woman, and I'm also a mother of kids, of boys. Yeah. So just coming from that framework, I tend to pause. Hey, this is somebody else's child. The parent may not necessarily be as knowledgeable as I am in terms of the context of what's happening in school and all of that. But I oftentimes want to treat this situation with the child as if I am their parent. Yeah. Okay. Let's find out what's happening with this child. Are they sleeping? Are they fed? Yeah. Are they safe at home? Why are they not showing up for you in class? Why are they not producing for you in class? And I think sometimes, and a lot of times, I have seen adults thinking that it's a slight to them personally. And a lot of times it's not. It's not personal. Yeah. This kid has their own thing happening at home. So part of the evaluation process, which I don't think sometimes even people see it or probably foresee this happening, is me having a conversation with the teacher. Hey, what is going on? What do you think is happening with the child at home? And have you spoken to the parent?
Yeah.
A lot of times they have not spoken to the parent.
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of prejudgment there. And I think once I usually have that conversation, sometimes it's not me directly, but once our people go out and they start doing, like you said, direct observation and having that communication with the teachers, talking about what are the different things that they're observing in the class, you can see almost like the blinders coming off. Oh, I might need to lean in a little bit more as a human.
Yes.
To find out what is really happening with this student. And then after we collect the data, we might find out, okay, the CPS was involved last year, or this child's grandparents used to live with them. They died, stuff like that. Sometimes I think, and I don't blame teachers as well because they're dealing with a lot, but I think sometimes just leading with empathy, always remembering that kids, even though they're kids, they're still human. They have their own world going on. It really does help us understand what is happening within the student's world.
All right. So, Renisha, your dissertation title, right? You talked about, I really loved your focus for your dissertation, by the way. You titled it The Power of Presence, Black Educators' Awareness, Resilience, and Resistance. So what does presence really mean to you, in terms of a behavioral leadership context? Like, how does presence impact the behavior of others?
Right. Yes. So presence in the context, at least in the context of my dissertation, is like it's like the disciplined practice of shaping conditions, or just like the awareness of being there. It's not performative. It's not like a personality trait. It's literally the awareness of being present within a system, right? I think, especially for Black educators, as professionals, there is a duality there because yes, you're showing up as a teacher, but you're also showing up as a Black teacher, right?
Yes.
And you are showing up with sometimes so much awareness is involved in being a Black teacher. And one of the things I remember coming up when I interviewed some of these teachers, and it's not just teachers, it's educators on a whole, because I also interviewed some administrators as well, is them describing sometimes having to mute their personalities or water it down, right? Not wanting to be seen as the angry Black woman in the context of probably witnessing harm being done to maybe another coworker or a student, and just essentially just tempering themselves. So presence in the context of my dissertation really was just looking at that consciousness and that awareness that we have as Black educators in different spaces. And sometimes the awareness is so layered. Historical awareness, right? You're thinking about where we are today and the context of where we were back then. Sometimes you're thinking about cultural awareness. I know there's a lot of talk about AAVE, or quote unquote Ebonics, being used now by Gen Z and being co-opted by a whole group of a whole generation, where there's that tension there where some Gen Zers think AAVE is really their generation's language, when there's a tension where people are, African Americans are like, no, this is an actual language. This is not the language of your generation. Awareness in terms of power. Who are the principals? Or who are the administrators? Who are the people making the big decisions that trickles down into the lives of the kids? And then awareness in terms of the biases. A lot of times there are things that are glaring to us as Black educators that are not glaring to other people.
Yeah.
It's like, did this just happen? and you're in the staff meeting and all the black people are making eye contact.
Yes. Oh, yes.
They're all making eye contact, and I was like, I know she did not just say that.
Say that, yeah.
Right? And then there's just the awareness in terms of survival. One of the things that really made me lean into that dissertation is as a Caribbean person, as somebody coming from Grenada, where everybody we know is black, predominantly black, leaders, role models, prisoners, everybody's black, right? Right?
Yes.
It's very glaring to me to not see myself in the spaces where I expect to see them. Granted, we are in North Texas. In terms of the racial or the demographics, it's skewed to, it's mostly white folks, and then there is Hispanic, and then there is a minority, so black people and Pacific Islanders and so on. But the disparity is even wider in the school system, right? So, yes, you have it within the demographics of how it's scattered in terms of residents, but even in the school system, it is a lot wider. So for me, I would often ask, well, where are the black teachers?
Yeah.
Where are the black administrators? And on top of that, a lot of the black administrators that are here are us. And us in this context are Caribbean people and immigrants.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is this the case? Why are there not black kids who grew up here locally wanting to come back to teach in the schools that they went to?
Yeah.
So that is really where my curiosity came. And again, it's probably because of my awareness of, hey, why is this so glaring? I really need to see a little bit more local black teachers here, not just people like myself, my husband, some of the teachers who went to the university in our area. Most of them are immigrants. They're not from here. So that curiosity really made me lean into, well, let me find out. And I looked at it from a different angle. Instead of asking, well, where are the black teachers or black educators? I went to the ones that were there and asked them, why are you here? What keeps you here?
Yeah.
And this is where I delved into the research, and I saw they had a deep awareness, a deep purpose, and a deep consciousness of what their profession is, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's why the word presence had to be a part of my dissertation topic.
Yeah. So they were aware and they had a purpose, like they wanted to be there to help contribute to other blacks. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so in spite of, for example, the emotional toll of sometimes feeling underrepresented, they feel it, but they feel like they are tasked to help other students that look like them to feel as if, hey, they are seeing a teacher who looks like them and represents them and understands them. They feel like they need to show up for these kids as well.
Yeah. So. And you have a valid point. Like, say, it's the same situation for me. It's obviously in most instances, I'm like one or two or three blacks. And, we think of it because, again, we're blacks. And so it's in our minds. But like we stand out. And so the presence of other black educators or other black administrators gives you some level of comfort, some level of familiarity, right? That it's not just you. You have someone here too, someone you can bounce ideas off, someone, people you can talk to. So, I think it's very helpful that way, but then also to encourage others, like you said, despite, there are challenging days. This, I know this, right? But we hang in there because, to your point, you made a really valid point there. We have a greater purpose, right, as to why we're there, and that's keeping us there. Yeah. So in saying all of that, you also, talked about resistance, in your research. So How does resistance, right, really serve as functional behavior for educators of color in systemic environments?
Yeah. I want to say that in my research, presence and resistance went hand in hand.
Okay.
It went hand in hand because just by being present,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times just the presence of Black educators sometimes will calm an anxious room,
Mm.
or a teacher might be even not even if they don't want to be sometimes the transcriber or the translator to the behavior
Yeah.
sometimes. Hey, he didn't mean what he said in that context.
Yeah.
Yes he's saying bro, but it's not derogatory. This is just the way he is, how he talks, whether it's me, you, his peers. Does he need to
Yeah.
clean that up? Absolutely. Right? Um, so resistance, I think in the context, at least in terms of my research,
Mm-hmm.
did absolutely go hand in hand because um, it just acted as resistance acts as a buffer a lot of the times to a lot of the things that happened on different campuses. I've seen it time after time after time. Both of those words did go hand in hand um, in actually getting kids to stay in school and also getting the teachers who are non-black as well to be, I would say, a little bit more more open to understanding the cultural differences between various groups.
Yeah.
So,
For me, it makes me think of Renisha, like so like resistance to acceptance, right? So and let me just break that down. So like I
hmm
often would find myself the one speaking up on behalf of students of color, so black, brown, whatever. So for example, if some sort of publication is being prepared and the individuals
hmm
on there are not representative, I'm always, I'll speak up. I'm like, can we have a different picture, something that, is more inclusive? Or if I walk into a classroom and all I'm seeing it's like white books, right? Like I'll have a conversation, with the teacher, like, can we have some more representation? Like, the students in your classroom are diverse. So, we want them to walk in and feel like, they're represented, they're here, they can see themselves. So I think it's a little bit of that for me to just resisting the acceptance of the lack of presence or representation,
right.
in the
And
environments that I'm in.
as you said that too, it reminded me of one of my teacher friends right now who is resisting. I want to say she's resisting some emotional labor.
Mm,
And I don't know if it is actually conscious by these, or if they're doing it consciously rather.
yeah,
But I think sometimes when kids are black and brown and they are experiencing some type of crisis,
yeah,
they are oftentimes automatically paired
yes,
with a black or brown teacher to solve
yes.
the issue. And I mean, I get yes, because it will almost sound like we're talking on both sides of our mouth here. But I
Yeah.
want to say there is a difference sometimes,
Hmm.
in actually bringing awareness, cultural awareness,
Yeah.
right? Or bridging two different understanding together for to help the student instead of sometimes passing off hard tasks to black and brown teachers. I think that there is
Yeah.
something different here.
Yeah.
And my teacher friend said, I don't even understand why they put this kid in my class. I didn't request for him to be in my class. He was in Miss So-and-so's class all semester long. And then we have 6 more weeks to go. And because his behavior has escalated, they think I am good with behavior, so they're going to transition him to my class instead of having him stay in the class that he's in and
Yeah.
having the teacher either learn some skills or sending somebody else to help or transition him within that
Yes.
class period.
Yeah.
No,
Hmm.
they moved
Yeah.
that student to her class.
Yeah.
So, and I know she did petition to say, hey, What is the reasoning for it? But I don't think it's going to be resolved. I think the kid is still going to stay in her class. But
Yeah.
it just reminds me sometimes that there is sometimes unfair practices and in the education system, and sometimes our teachers are paired with difficult students just because they too are black and brown.
Yeah. And then that's resource strain, right? Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Based on your demographics. Yeah.
You become the
Um,
fixer.
you become the fixer. Yeah. And sometimes you need some extent of, that being extended to you as
Right?
well, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So transitioning from Grenada to the U.S. education system, Renisha, it's a major
Mm-hmm.
shift, right? For a whole
It
number
is.
of reasons. Like we can sit and talk about this all day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. What was your biggest behavioral adjustment as a leader in shifting from the mindset, your culture, your experiences growing up in Grenada to the system here?
I would say, I thought about this one last night as I
Yeah.
laid down and I said, one of the things in my earlier teaching days when I started to teach here in America, I thought of, so I started off as a co-teacher in math in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I do remember looking at and admiring is how this teacher, her name is Miss Hedge. Love her. Shout out to Miss Hedge.
Yeah.
She doesn't work with WFISD
Okay.
anymore.
Okay.
But I took this away from her. She was not an authoritarian.
Mm.
I think, and Grenadians don't fight me down,
Yeah.
but I think we lead with a very iron fist.
Yeah.
Like we tell kids, well, you're going to do this. I gave you this. You should. And I took that because I think oftentimes as teachers, we teach how we were taught.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
how I went to the classroom. I was telling the kids, you need to do this. You have to do this. And I told you to do this. She was not like that. She
Mm.
was constantly negotiating. And I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie, that irritated me because why are you negotiating with kids?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Why am I negotiating with you?
Yeah.
And it ties back a little bit to the empathy. They're human, right?
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
autonomous beings themselves.
Yes.
They have the right to, agree or disagree. They are
Yeah.
humans just like us.
Yeah.
But to tie it back to the way that I grew up with the teachers, I love them. They were very efficient and all that. But I think some of that may have some residual effects of colonialism and slavery,
Yeah.
where we are very familiar with top-down education, a very iron fist, very direct.
Yes.
You only speak if you're asked. If you're asked
Yes.
to respond,
Yes.
and that's something I had to take and flip.
Mm-hmm.
I had to become more collaborative as a teacher and a leader.
Yeah.
And no, I can honestly say that I'm my leadership style is more collaborative and service driven. I'm a servant leader.
Yeah.
I am not an authoritarian. I don't micromanage either. My expectation going in is give and take,
Yes.
you're doing, I ask you, I collaborate with you. And I think I first saw that emulated in that classroom, and it was ran beautifully. It was very effective, even for kids who did not want to be there.
Yeah.
And there are some times when I remember Ms. Hedge would just say, oh, you don't want to do it? That's okay. That's on you, buddy. I'm just letting you know that this is a task that you're supposed to complete by 10:55. You have about 15 minutes. It's up to you. And she would walk away. She'll leave it there.
Yeah.
She picked her battles. I don't think that's something that I've ever seen in Grenada.
Nope.
In fact, you would have been outside the classroom doing that with your paper and your bag, completing your assignments outside. Excuse me, not in my classroom. You're not running anything inside here. You ain't running anything.
Yep.
So that alone was a mind shift for me. And I really appreciate that because she was effective.
Yeah.
And she taught with love. I think the kids felt that that she was genuinely concerned. Not saying that our Grenadian teachers don't, they don't,
Right.
but
Right.
it's just a different way to present information in a classroom, to navigate the education system for kids with differences and disabilities, because we don't necessarily identify kids with disabilities as much as we do
Right.
here, to
Exactly.
feel that there is some room for negotiation if they are experiencing some challenge. Because think about it, a kid with dyslexia who has difficulty reading, who we may not have identified, they're in Form 1, they're in a new
Yeah.
class, they have difficulty. Yes, they pass the CPA, the common entrance exam,
Yeah.
but they probably have been accommodating for a long time, so they know
Yes.
how to
Yes.
to pass it, right? But
Yeah.
they're in this new classroom, new friends, new teachers, and there's the demands. Hey, you have to write 3 paragraphs at the end of the class period. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Anxiety.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
that's our style. That is the expectation. And I just know sometimes we are losing some of the kids who might just close up and
Yeah.
not open up to the education just by the way we present
Yeah.
our teaching or our teaching style.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on both points. In terms of the delivery, like even as a behavior analyst, having to learn that, like you're saying that, giving them the options, giving them the choice, not like, oh, you're going to do this. And the big one for me was speaking up. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I remember growing up, like speak when you're spoken to, answer when you're called, uh, so being in meetings, being in
What
rooms,
voice? What voice? What
right,
voice as a child?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Yep, that was not a thing at all. And here I'm like, if you sit there and you're silent, nothing's happening. And then they're
Absolutely.
also looking at you like, so you have no contributions to make. So
Mhm.
speaking up was a shift I had to make, and it's something I'm still, working on. I mean, I do it a lot more than I did like years ago. But we have to be able to speak up for ourselves, for others, for those who need us to step in and advocate for them, and it's really for the greater good of sharing our thoughts, giving everybody, making sure everyone has a voice.
Yeah.
And so whatever we're doing is benefiting the cause. So
Yeah.
I really liked your response. Thank you for that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
on a personal level, how do you
Mhm.
recharge, right, your resilience when the demands of your job, of your district, just of work, of life, feel
Mhm. Mhm.
overwhelming?
Mhm. How do I recharge? I want to believe, and I have to say I want to believe because I don't know if I truly do implement it.
I get it.
Okay, there's a couple of things.
Okay.
There's a couple of things. For one, I have to go back to Grenada once a year at minimum.
Okay.
I have to. It grounds me. It centers me. It gives me perspective
Mm-hmm.
as to what is important in life. I
Yeah.
think when you stay here, no knock to America because, this is where I live. I'm a resident. I'm a citizen, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And it gives me my daily bread. But there is an element, there's a rat race,
Yeah.
there's a level of anxiety that we have here in the workspace that we do not have in Grenada. Things that people act as if it's they act as if it's a crisis. You need to call 911, maybe about an email.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Come
And
again?
I mean, when I go home and I go to Grenada and I put my toes in the sand,
Yes.
I put my toes in the sand, Esther.
Yeah.
It grounds me. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is life.
Yeah.
Somewhere else, it is
Yeah.
different.
Mm-hmm.
People live, people
Yeah.
function without all the things that is
Yes.
happening in this world, in this
Yeah.
context. And
Yeah.
I know some of my coworkers will often say, oh my gosh, you actually seem really zen when we are in high stress situations. And I have to
Yeah.
tell them, guys, in a different world, Grenada, for example,
Yes.
this does not exist.
Nope.
This
Doesn't.
does not exist. And I understand that in this context, it's somebody's everything. It is probably what is keeping up somebody at night.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, a lot of the things are constructs we create, right? And I think that just that one thing, so it keeps me grounded. Yeah. It reminds me that what we do, even though it is impactful, there's purpose behind it. It is not everything. I'm thinking about, are the kids safe? Are they fed? Are they learning? That's the bottom line.
That's the
not whether or not you not whether or not you answer the email the same day.
Yes.
Right? Like, come on, hello, are we, let's keep it real.
Keep it real. Keep it real.
So that grounds me, one. And then two, I really try my best not to take work at home. I think I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. I think some of my coworkers need to work on that. They will text me some work stuff on the weekends. And when I come to work on Monday, like, hey, did you see? No, I did not. Because I did not open my email. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So sorry. And there is a little bit of peer pressure with that because, even my supervisor, she would oftentimes say, I think the higher you go, you need to be a little bit more connected. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Does that mean that you need to be connected 24/7? Because I have this role, or am I now indebted? My whole life is indebted to this job. So I have, in many ways, respectfully created that boundary for my family and for myself. And I think it has really kept me sane. It has kept me grounded. And I think so far, there is some longevity because of that. I think people oftentimes get burnt out in the American way, to be too consumed with your work. We do not live to work. We work to live. So I think those two things really keep me grounded. I have to go home. I have to put my toes in the sand. And I have to compartmentalize a little bit. And I have to say, don't forget, I have to suck a mango because God knows if I don't suck a mango, I'm just automatically I feel I'm going to have a body ache. If I don't suck a Julie mango, Esther, oh my goodness.
Yes, it has to be a Julie.
I have to suck the Julie mango on the veranda in my nightie, watching over the veranda and getting some cool breeze. Oh my gosh, I don't need anything else. I can 2 days home, and once I do that, my toes in the sun and the mango, I'm good.
It's good.
I don't need anything else.
It's so funny. 100%. That's me 100%. Like from the minute, I land, I call off the plane. But my supervisor asked me the other day, she was like, well, what do you have for breakfast when you go home? I was like, you really want to know? I get up, I go outside, go down in the land behind the house, pick the mango, pick all the stuff, bring it back in, eat them, sit down under the tree, and it's a Julie mango. It's a Julie mango.
Love it. It's a must. It's a must. Yeah.
It's a must. You have to have that. It just, like you said, it balances you, it rejuvenates you. You have to, and you go home and then it's just home, right? It's just the home, the fun, the excitement. So that really helps. And the boundaries too, that's also big. So kudos to you.
Yeah.
So if you could go back to the Grenadian, Renisha, before you moved here, right? Just starting out your journey. What one leadership advice would you give to yourself? Would you give to her, right? Including, behaviors to model for the next generation of Caribbean, leaders in education, Grenadian leaders too.
Yes. If I have to go back to Grenadian Renisha, what would I tell her to do differently? Well, not necessarily differently, but what can I tell them to inspire them?
Yes.
I would tell them that don't play it small. Don't ever play it small.
Yeah.
I think and I could just be, at least for Grenada, I think our potential is so large sometimes, and again, I think it's residual effects of colonialism and slavery. We think that when some people talk or they rappel better than us, or their communication style feels a little bit more dynamic and you're more entranced, you think that they know more than you. Or you think that they might be more effective than you. Or you tend to feel, oh, I don't know if I can do what they're doing.
Mm.
What I can say is the longer I've lived here, I
Yeah.
think there's a coin that is flipped. I
Mm-hmm.
think for a lot of the times, a lot of Caribbean people, sometimes we are a little bit reserved with our accent in
Yes.
spaces because people ask us, what did you say?
Yeah.
What did you say? And you don't
Yeah.
want to repeat yourself. It
You don't.
becomes irritating after a while.
Yes.
And
It
sometimes
does.
it is a slight because there is a little bit of that
Yes.
discrimination going on,
Yes. Yes.
and it's subtle. And sometimes we try not to speak up in rooms. And again, this probably comes back to the voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
We try not to speak up in the room and we shrink ourselves. And
Yeah.
sometimes we come up here and there's like an imposter syndrome. As in, I don't think I can do that. I don't feel like I should apply for this job. Apply for the job.
Yes.
You got
Yes.
it.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
do it.
Yes.
You got it.
Yes.
You may not feel that you have the voice or you have the communication style, or you might fill up the room with your presence, but I promise you, you are just as impactful or sometimes
Yeah.
even more impactful.
Yeah.
And I want anybody who comes up here, whether they're starting off as a student or they're starting off as a worker, do not shrink yourself.
Mm.
Do not shrink yourself. Play it big every single time. And even if you may not reach what you're shooting for, you might just shoot slightly below,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but aim very high and very far.
Yeah.
And I want us to have a little bit more regional self-esteem, if that's even a thing, or
Yeah.
even Grenadian self-esteem, because we do have it. But
We
I
have
think
it.
when we're put in certain environments, we tend to shrink ourselves and think that others may be better than us in some capacities. And I think sometimes just our communication style, sometimes our voice, we sometimes think, okay, these people are from America. Oh gosh, somebody from the UK, they sound like a real bright boy. Wow, I don't know if I could do it.
No,
Don't
you
do
can.
that.
Yeah.
Don't do that, right? So that's definitely my advice to anybody coming up here. Do not ever, ever, ever reduce yourself. Think big and shoot high.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I always say to Nikila, my daughter, what do you have to lose, right? And
Mm-hmm.
never allow yourself to tell yourself no. Put yourself out there, do the application, whatever the case might be, because you never want to be in life where you're like, oh, I wonder what would have if I did, right? So you put yourself out there. Don't ask, don't get, closed mouth, get, all of those things. Put yourself out there.
Closed
Don't.
mouths don't get fed.
Yeah, yeah. Don't tell yourself no. Don't tell yourself you can't do it. Put yourself out there, right?
What is the Grenadian saying? Crab must walk to eat.
Yes, yes.
It's kind of similar. Like
Yeah.
you have to do something. You have
You
to
have,
try. Don't
yes.
tell yourself no because the
No.
person probably was going to say yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't block your own blessing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
So,
I really would encourage anyone, I think about my sisters because I'm the oldest, I think about my sisters, all my siblings, I always want them to dream big. Yes, you can. You can always do it. I know some people are like, oh my gosh, we've been hearing that since we graduated from preschool, from primary school. We've been hearing this is the start. Every graduation we go to, oh my gosh, dream big. Yes, it's true.
it's true.
It's said at every graduation because it's absolutely
It's
true.
true. Yep.
Yes.
Will always be true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So to close us out, Renisha, for our listeners, right, who want to lead with no presence, we talked about presence today. We talked about lots of things, but what is one small action they can start taking, say tomorrow, right, to start leading with more presence?
I would tell you, Esther, this one was probably the easiest one for me because I practice it daily.
Okay.
And Joel probably knows it as well. The power of a pause.
Mm.
If anybody knows me growing up, I've always been animated. I've always been very ebullient, full of life, laughing, hee, impulsive, right? Yeah. And my mouth would just, I'm very witty, right? I'm straight to it. I like banter. Sparring, that's my thing. And sometimes as a leader, you need to take a pause.
Yeah.
The power of a pause. I think going into grad school, one of the things that we talked about at the end was mindfulness and just being conscious of your own body, being conscious of your body in the environment, being conscious of the environment before the environment is even conscious of you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the power of a pause before presenting, before answering, before interacting is so important, because you can tell in that pause, are you nervous? Should I take a couple breaths before I respond? Am I angry? And am I responding in anger? And again, it's not performative. It's actually very functional. And that's something that I have had to practice as I've gotten older, because like I said, I have been very impulsive in the past, and I will just automatically respond. And my response is sometimes not something that I wanted to say out loud. Mm-hmm. Maybe in my mind, I wanted to keep that, right? But that pause has saved me a lot of times as a leader, right? And sometimes you may want to cut somebody off because they're going a certain way, they're taking the conversation. But the pause has helped me in so much ways in terms of navigating difficult conversations. Sometimes I paused enough for a parent to say, thank you for listening, instead of cutting them off. A pause sometimes has made me realize that I'm shaking because I'm nervous, or I'm shaking because I'm angry that I'm in this situation that I didn't put myself in. So if there's one thing I would tell anybody, whether they're in leadership or just as a human being, even with dealing with your own kids or, relationships, the power of a pause is so important. Just mindfulness and being aware of your body, being aware of your actions, your breathing. It sounds woo-woo. I know it does a little bit, but it is something that I think is very functional and very impactful on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love that. The power of a pause. What a powerful note to end on. Yeah. Renisha, thank you so much for your time, for your chat, for the fun, for the laughs, And,
it was fun. It was
fun. Yeah. We pulled it off. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Bye,
You're
everyone.
very welcome. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Behaviorally Speaking Leadership for Changemakers. Today, Renisha reminded us that numbers tell a story, but context gives them meaning, that presence is a disciplined practice of awareness, and that resilience allows us to make a big impact no matter how small our beginnings. If you have a story about leadership and behavior from your community, share your story with us. If this episode resonated, share it with someone, and check out our companion blog, Behaviorally Speaking, Insights for Changemakers, at esthercbubbabaservices.com/blog. For training, coaching, and behavior-based leadership support, visit esthercbubbabaservices.com. Until next time, lead with humanity and purpose, practice with compassion and intention, and create meaningful, lasting change. This is Dr. Bubb. Stay inspired.